Okay, so I guess we are live. Hello and welcome back, folks, to our Angular weekly videos. I shouldn't even say them that they're weekly now because since the last 21 days, since last 3 weeks, we were not able to post any video. And if you have been following us on Instagram, Twitter, or any other social media platform, you would know that Kritika and I just bought a house. And because of that, we were super busy in the last 2 or 3 weeks. But anyways, we are back at it. So for those who don't know what the Angular course and what live course I'm talking about, just to give you an overall idea, we started an Angular course that we would do live in front of you so that you guys can ask questions whenever we go live and bring your questions to the next live stream whenever you have seen the old ones. So in the first video, we have done the overall introduction and initial setup. In the second one, we did the application layout using Angular materials, schematics, and Bootstrap. Then we learned the services and dependency injection, pipes, Angular materials, etc. Then we dive deep into Angular routing and navigation. And finally, in this video, this is week 5, we will be doing HTTP communication with backend services. And this is by far the most important video, because it doesn't matter if you use Angular, React, Vue, if you are a backend developer or a front-end developer, it doesn't even matter. Your application almost always needs to communicate with external services by making some kind of HTTP requests. That's why you need to understand this concept. It's not just limited to Angular. This is a concept that every developer needs to know, needs to understand. Also, just to help you guys a little more, we always create branches. So for example, if you just completed watching week 3's video, you don't have to go to the main branch of this project. So this project is posted on GitHub. The link to that is down in the description below. And if you just completed week 2 or week 3, you can just go to week 3 and see the code that was supposed to be completed or supposed to be done in week 3. You don't need to see the latest code because the latest code can be very different than the video you are watching. So you can go to week 3, week 4, week 5, and so on. Today is week 5. So let's dive right into it. Let me explain to you what I'm planning to do. As you can see, if I refresh this page, we get, obviously it's not complete yet, but on the left, we have coin of the day, which we'll fetch using API later on. On the right-hand side, we have list of cryptocurrencies. We have the major cryptocurrencies by market cap. We have Bitcoin, Ethereum, Tether, Binance, etc., etc. Now, what's happening over here is this is the market cap, so $672 billion, if I'm not wrong, and this here is the price. But there's one problem with our application. This is hard-coded right now. Let me show you in the code. As you can see over here, this is actually hard-coded. So now if I change Bitcoin's price from 35,000 to 55,000 and refresh my application, well, it's 55,000 already. If I change it back to 15,000, well, I hope it doesn't go to there, but see, it's 15,000. There is no HTTP request. There's no backend communication. And that's what we want to introduce now. So for introducing backend communication, what we need to do is, first of all, you need to understand what an HTTP client is. So in Angular, and as I said, I'll just stash it because I want my price to be as good as old, 35,910. Okay, now basically, the first thing you need to do in Angular is import the HTTP client module. HTTP client module will help you make HTTP requests. So this is just an import that you need to make in your app module. I think I should zoom in a little for you. So there you go. This is what we imported, HTTP client module. I'll also show this to you on your screen. Okay, so once we are done with that, the next thing we should do is we should actually start using this module. Now, if you don't remember, or if you are watching this for the first time, you would know that in our crypto prices component, we have a service, crypto prices service, which gives us the market data. So that is how we are getting market data. And as you can see, it is not asynchronous. Everything is static and hard-coded. Now, if I go inside this class, or this service, I should say, you will see that I have an array with hard-coded data, and then I have a getter and setter for that. And obviously, I'm using getter to get the values. But now I don't really want that. Now what I want to check is, first of all, this now can be an empty array, because once I make an API request, I might or might not get a response. So first of all, I should check if this dot market data dot length. If it doesn't exist, then we need to make the HTTP request. I hope this is clear, right? If we don't have data, then only we need to make HTTP request. If we already have some data, why should we do the request in the first place? So let's just do a log over here and check if we actually ever reach here. I'll inspect it, open the console. Let's see. Nothing here is printed. As you can see, nothing really is printed over here. And why is that? Well, the reason is we still haven't, commented out our market data. So for that, I'll just remove all of this. I'll make it an empty array. And now I should get this console statement which says make an HTTP request. See, now I got it over here. Okay, so this looks good. At least now we know that we need to make an HTTP request in our application, and we have removed all the static hard-coded code, hard-coded data. That's good. That's the first step. Now, the second step is we need to make a request. So for that, we'll do HTTP crypto prices services. Let's say fetch market data. This sounds good. Fetch market data. Now, obviously, this function doesn't exist, so we'll just quickly create that. Okay, pretty good. So now we have created a market data function, but we are not really doing an HTTP request here. So now let's actually start making the HTTP request. And just a second, before we do that, maybe I haven't told you yet what are models. So models in Angular are basically just a way to create your own types. Obviously, you could use interfaces or anything you want. So I'll just create a shared folder. In the shared folder, I create models. In model, I'll create market data dot model.ts. Now, you don't necessarily need to create this, but I like to create them because this enhances our TypeScript experience and gives us the types, hard-coded types, which are strict and which will help in our application throughout. Okay, so for what I need to do is, if I do a Control Z over here, I just want to check what kind of market data objects did we have. Pretty good. So we have S, N, P, MC, and PC, which is symbol, name, price, market cap, and percent change. Okay, pretty good. So over here, I'll do export class market data. I'll just create a constructor basically to define the types. Okay, perfect. Now, as you know, we need this information. So I'll just copy this. Have I defined the types anywhere? Where can I find the types? I think I might have. Yes, there you go. For example, here I have created the type, the complicated object, which tells me what I'm going to get. I'll just copy that and bring it over here in the constructor. Now in the constructor, obviously we can't have these semicolons, so I'll just replace them with commas. Also, I'll just add public. And that's it. So basically, I've created my own personal custom type, which is again a very important concept. So we have created a personal custom type again, and finally we should start using it. As you can see over here, it started giving me an error that it's just what's the type of this variable. So for that, I'll just do market data, and I'll ask my Visual Studio Code to import that. So finally, I have a type over here. Now the good thing is, if I do this dot market data dot, or let's say the first index dot Now it actually knows what types do I have. It knows I have a market cap, a number, a price cap, and a symbol. So now it infers my type from the model that we have created. So that is pretty good. Now, why did I create that in the first place? Because over here, I want to make it clear that this is going to be market data array. And once we make this clear, all the getters and setters, they automatically start working in a perfect manner and adhering to all the laws of TypeScript. But to be more direct, we can even do this. We can even tell it what what are the types of these getters and setters, which are obviously inferred from over here, but still we can explicitly type them. It's a good practice. You should do that. So once we're done with that, now what I want to do is I finally want to make an HTTP request. For that, first of all, I need to import HTTP client service. Maybe now it's better for you, a little more zoomed in. And I'll import HTTP. Okay, there you go. Finally, we have imported HTTP client from Angular common HTTP. We have our client. Now let's start making the actual request. Now, as you know, this kind of code, if you're new to programming, you might not understand this in the first place, but if you think about it, HTTP requests are asynchronous. So basically, they don't finish as soon as the line executes. Your code is making an external request, and that external request is being processed in the server somewhere and is giving you a response. So that takes time. It can take anywhere from 1 millisecond to 10 seconds if your server is very slow. So all you need to do is you need to make sure that you're handling this in an asynchronous way. So for example, I can't just do this.marketData is equal to my API request. No, it won't work like that. I need to wait for the response, and I'll show you how to do that. So first of all, this.httpClient.get, and I need my API over here. Perfect. And that's it. Now, what will be your API? Now, for the sake of this application, I'm using LunarCrush, which is a great open source API for crypto. Obviously, I have this key. As soon as this video ends, this key would be regenerated, and I would change it because you should not share your keys with anyone. But for the sake of this tutorial, I'll take the risk for a couple more minutes. Now, as soon as it is a free tool, so you can use it as well. If you're using a different application, if your use case is different, obviously you can create any kind of API, maybe have your own custom APIs in the backend. It doesn't matter, all the APIs are going to work in the same manner. So that's the first thing you need to understand. You don't need to worry about this particular example because all examples will work in the same way. Now, if you go over the documentation, it explains very well what you need to do, what kind of API requests you can make, and there's nothing more I could tell you about it. So I'll just take the HTTP request that I was going to make in the first place, and I'll just execute that. So if I go back to my Visual Studio Code, this is the API, right? So there you go. This is my API. I'm trying to get all the market data, and I should need to pass a key. As you can see, it requires a key. Now, for that, I'll just create a constant key is equal to this. And obviously, my key is over here, as you already saw it before. Now, let's see if we are making an API request. This executes, but still I haven't made my API request. Now, what can be the reason for that? Try to guess it for a couple of seconds, because just to be even more clear, I'll make this console statement over here. But still, this API request won't execute. See, I still get HTTP, but still my request is not executing. Now, what can be the possible reason for this? Well, Angular is pretty smart. Angular knows that, yes, we are trying to get this thing from the API endpoint, but no one is actually using it. So as long as you don't use your API response, Angular is not going to make an unnecessary API request. It is very smart with that. And I appreciate their feature. This is not a bug, this is a feature. And for that, what I need to do is I need to write subscribe. Now, what is subscriptions and observables? I'll get into that in a couple of minutes, but just wait until you see what happens when we actually subscribe. When we hit the subscribe and I refresh, if I go to my network, and I remove this. See, this is my API request. I'm going to LunarCrush and I'm making an API request of type GET and I get the response. I even have all the cryptocurrencies. So basically, as soon as I introduce the subscribe over here, I finally have the API request and my response. So that's pretty good. That's one concept out of the way. Now, what are subscriptions and observables? Well, Angular follows the observable pattern, and basically it says everything that happens asynchronously is kind of an observable. I'm just explaining it to you like a 5-year-old. Everything that happens in Angular is an observable, and everything that you need to, anything in your application that needs to subscribe to that observable. So whenever that observable changes or initiates or wants to push anything new, let's say you have 5 different pages, 5 different services who wants to listen to the change in data, they can all subscribe to it. So that's how subscriptions and observables work. Observable is something that is asynchronous and that can change. You can subscribe to that change so that whenever it changes, you get the response. You get updated basically. This is how Angular updates its application most of the times. Okay, so what we need to do is, the better way is I can actually subscribe to this in my component. So for that, I'll write subscribe. I'll wait for the response. And finally, just print it. Okay, pretty good. Let's see if it finally works. Now, if I refresh my application, I go to console, see, I have a perfect response. I have Bitcoin, Ethereum, all the 10 cryptocurrencies by their market cap. So that's pretty good. That's a very nice improvement in our application already. Now, there's a couple of things that I want to improve. What I don't like at the moment is, let me actually show it to you let me show you the problem before I start fixing it. Response.data. Let's say this is any just for now because I'm going to remove it anyways. So see, now we have our cryptocurrencies. Our application is working as it used to work before. So that looks pretty good. But there's a problem with our application. You see, this is already printed once. Now, if I go inside and click back, it's executed again. If I go inside, click back again, which is really bad. You are making an unnecessary API request when your application already has some data. Let's say I go into Dogecoin, one of my favorite cryptocurrencies. If I go back, I make another HTTP request, another API request, which is really bad, as I already told you. That's something we want to avoid. So for that, what we'll do is we'll use RxJs, which is another Angular concept, and don't get overwhelmed. It is very easy. If you don't understand it once, you can watch this video a couple of times. If not, you can ask questions in the comments always. We typically reply within 24 hours. So you can do a pipe. So pipe basically says someone is subscribing to it, that's great, but we'll do a little magic in between. So we get the response, we'll do the magic with the help of pipe, and then whoever wants to subscribe can subscribe the same way. So in pipe, we can do a tap. So basically we are tapping into the response. You can take the response, do something with it, and let it continue. So what I want to do over here is I want to say the response, and we can actually now also define the type of response because we are good programmers, right? We follow all the best practices. And in this response, if you saw what was printed before, we have a config. We're not really using the config right now, so I'll just make it any. We have the data, which is obviously market data array. And this is not what I wanted. Actually, you know what? It's even better if I don't do this here. And actually, I can define the type over here. I can define the type of response that I'm going to get. So, and the usage was the third variable. I'll also make that any. Perfect. So now I have all my types secured. And finally, let's go back into the application. It's giving me an error. Let's see why. I have a tap. I have a response. Okay, perfect. Okay, there you go. So we have the response. Now what I want to do is I want to assign my response to the market data. And I'll say response.data. And over here, instead of actually subscribing to and actually assigning the response over here like this, what I'll do is I will use the same thing, because I'm actually now assigning, and I don't need the response over here. So I'll just create an empty arrow function. So basically what I'm doing over here is I'm saying crypto market service, if the market data doesn't exist, only then make the request. Otherwise, we don't need to make the request because we'll get the market data over here. Let's see if it actually works, and then I'll explain it again, just so that it's more clear and you can understand it, because it's a very important concept. Let's say I refresh my application. If I go back, I don't see it. If I go back, I don't see it. If I refresh, let me actually print this so that you can actually see if it's working fine or not. Okay, so now if I refresh my application for the first time, we obviously see this. But if I go in Bitcoin and go back, there is no new console log. Let me show you again. If we go into Dogecoin and go back, again, no new console log. And why is that? It's very important to understand why we have improved our application by 10 folds. We have improved and optimized our application at such a big extent that you actually need to understand what's happening. Earlier, what we were doing was we were actually checking the market data. And if it didn't exist, we were fetching it from our service and we were asking it to make the API request. Now, the problem is whenever this component re-executes, so whenever we go back to the same page, ng on init starts, and again, it does the same thing. Why? It makes another API request because we never updated the market data. Let me go inside the application, inside the service, sorry. You see we have a market data and we have getters and setters, right? Because we were not updating this variable, so this is kind of the core data of our application which we need. Because we were not updating it, it was always an empty array. Now what we are doing over here is we are saying, and I'll remove this console log because we don't need it anymore. Now we are saying this is the key, this is the API endpoint. Whenever you get a response, just store that response in this market data. And that's it. That's all we want to do for now. Now, once we have this array filled up, this market data array filled up, once we have that, then we can use this throughout our application because services can be shared throughout the application. And once we go inside the component, it's very easy and straightforward because what we are doing is we are just saying, give me the market data. Once this API executes, give it to me. And next time when this component re-executes, I'm not even going inside this if statement because I'm getting the response, I'm getting the market data in the first place from my first line. It's pretty important to understand. So if you have any questions, you can ask in the comments down below. Don't hesitate to ask your questions anytime. We are available for you. Now, if I refresh my application, it's working pretty well. All of this data is not static. It's not hard-coded. It's actually coming from a API endpoint. So tomorrow, these can be more green. These can be more red based on what the market is doing. This is actual data in an actual application. And just to be honest, we have learned a lot today. We have learned how HTTP works, how APIs, how asynchronous communication. But let me tell you one thing, we have barely just touched the surface. There's so much more to subscriptions, to RxJs, to observables, there are interceptors that we could have used to intend to basically attach our API key. And there's so much with RxJs, there's so much with subscriptions, observables. We could have used ngrx, we could have created a store. It all depends on the kind of application we are building. For the simple application we have right now, this is the best that we should be doing because anything after that is an overkill. But once we start building an application, once we start building a more complex project, we will be going into more details. We will be touching the niche concepts of Angular and subscriptions and RxJs and observables, and we will be learning a lot. But for now, if you didn't know these concepts already, this is a lot to take in. So I would recommend you for the first time to watch this video for 2 or 3 times, try to understand and ask your questions whenever you have them, and hit the like button if you learn anything new. That's very important. That boosts our motivation, confidence and motivation, but also it helps our video reach out more people, and in the end we can help more people with our knowledge and by sharing what we know already. Just to give you a quick recap, we already have a GitHub page. If you don't know that already, if you join in late, we have our branches by week 3, week 4, week 5. So today is week 5. If you want to see today's code a month from now, maybe our master branch will be updated and will have a lot of more features. But if you just want to see what happened in week 5, you just click on week 5 branch. If you're watching week 3, you do that with week 3, and that is it. You will always have the code that you need to implement, that you need to understand, and you won't be lost in a lot of big features that were not created in the video you're watching right now. For example, today's week 5. Now, as always, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, comment down below if you like the video, if you dislike the video, or if you have any questions. We would love to hear from you anyways. And until next time, bye.